Are you ready for some smart, plain talk on politics, Israel, and the law? It's the Andrew Parker Show. Let's roll. Welcome to another episode of the Andrew Parker Show. Thank you once again for opening up this episode and giving us an opportunity to shed some light as we talk politics, Israel, and the law, world affairs, as well as domestic policy. And again, trying to shed just a little bit of light. And what I want to talk about today is, have we all gone crazy? Do we need to just stop a moment and reset, start over, figure it out again from the beginning? Because as we slog along and trying to create, what do we call it, more perfect union, everybody getting along, loving thy neighbor, as we create a community, a society, not just here in the U.S., but across the world, and try to survive as, 8 billion humans who inhabit the earth? How are we going to survive? Boy, it has gotten crazy where some of the worst, most heinous acts and atrocities, one human to another, as occurred on October 7th, is being cheered by far too many. And those who cheer it on are getting supported to become our leaders by far too many. And those people who are supporting such hate, or at least politicians who have shown their support for this, and they are getting their own support. Many of those who support the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, and others, who are Hamas sympathizers, who march in support of Hamas and what they stand for, which is the total and utter destruction of the Jewish people and the state of Israel. It's in writing, not hyperbole. Many of those who support these Hamas supporters are white, middle-aged to more elevated age, women, educated. What are they doing? What are they thinking? Where are they coming from? And, of course, there's a whole youth movement in support of that destructive, killing conduct of Hamas. And so you wonder, have we all gone crazy? You know, the support for socialism is incredible. Well, maybe it's not, because Barack Obama really shed light on the issue of the haves and the have-nots. And the have-nots are rising up in this socialist movement, as they have done numerous times in human history, failing each and every time, which isn't surprising, is it? Is it? when you have a system that rewards the lowest common denominator, rewards laziness and do nothing. Yeah, it rewards it because you can do nothing, but we will take care of you. We will give you things for free that you do not have to earn or work for, because somebody else, at least for a time, will be working, and we will take what they earned and spread it to you, even though you're not working. The idea can be seen in the factory, where everyone works to the lowest common denominator unless there is a reason to work harder, unless there is an incentive. And even if you say, no, I won't do that, and my buddies won't do that either, they're going to work their tail off even though they don't make any more money. Or even though they make more money, but they got to give it to somebody else. Well, after a while, when you're working your fingers to the bone, you start going, what am I doing this for? I'm giving it to Joe over there who's sitting on the couch the whole day. You know, redistribution of wealth. That's what it's about. Or maybe it's, I'm making a lot of money in this business as the owner of the business, but I'm not going to open this business because I got to give so much of it away. Whereas if you're able to keep the property, the money, the funds for the toil that you engage in to earn it, you might have incentive to work harder, earn more, think about things more, and innovate and invent and create things that people want or need or that improve our lot. Why? Because you'll have a return, and there will be private property that you can gather and obtain, and people won't be allowed to take it away. Because if they are allowed to take it away from you, you won't do it. You won't do the innovation, the invention. You won't do the hard work, the extra work. And to think that, oh yeah, you'll do it anyway and everything will be great. No, and after a while, everybody stops. And then you look around the room and you go, wow, who's going to provide for all these people who are getting free stuff? Who's going to be the haves? The haves have shrunk so much. And the have-nots have grown so much that we're just not going to be able to provide for the have-nots anymore. So the poor get poorer. And pretty soon, you're a third world country. Which I don't really know what that means, third world country, but you get the idea of what I'm saying, and you can picture it. So how stupid do we have to be to actually support socialism? I mean, and it's got credibility. Nobody is saying this, or they're simply saying it in generalities to the point where, well, of course, everybody knows. No, everybody doesn't know. 72% of the Democrats in Maine voted for this Nazi tattoo guy. You know, despite the Nazi tattoo, despite the abuse of women, despite his Democratic Socialists of America push, he is a socialist and self-avowed, as well as many others, and they are getting elected. Crazy. So, that's the question. How is it that they're getting elected? Setting aside Maine and U.S. senators, let's look at Congress. Several are getting elected in Congress. Now, several are getting defeated, and, you know, the crazies are getting knocked out. Right now, it's about even, as many that are getting tossed as are coming in. But it's not shrinking. It should have zero oxygen. But it doesn't. It's growing. All right. So 20 years ago, not much less than that, but it was not this way. But today it is, and what I'm talking about is the fact that 90% of all of the seats in the U.S. House of Representatives, there are about 430, well, there are 435 seats in the House. The 50 states have 435 congressional districts. And House seats. And normally we think, well, they're decided on general election day. You get a Republican candidate, you got a Democratic candidate, sometimes you have an independent, but generally speaking, you got the two parties and they put up their candidates and they fight it out, and the House is split accordingly. But what has happened over the last many years is that these 435 seats are determined not in the general election. They're determined in the primaries, where the parties elect who it is that they want to be carrying the banner of that party into the general election. Now, what do I mean by 90% of the districts are primary determinative? That means whoever wins the primary in District A, for example, in Congressional District A, automatically is going to get that seat in Congress because the district is so slanted Democrat or slanted Republican that the general election is a foregone conclusion. So if it is a Democrat district, whoever the Democrats elevate to the pedestal of their carrying their banner into the general election is going to win. You know, they could be, it could be a plus 30 Democrat district, meaning it's 30 points more likely. And the voters have consistently voted Democratic or Republican. And 90% of the districts in the United States of America are that way. They're either going to go one way or the other in a general and never have an actual battle. 10% are, toss-ups or at least within a margin that could go either way. But 90% are decided in primaries. So let's look at these primaries. Well, in the primaries, because, for example, the Democratic Party has allowed into its Democratic tent these crazy DSA believing socialism is somehow great or even viable to improve poverty or to help the downtrodden or those who have not. It does the opposite, in fact. But in any event, they are very motivated. They get involved in primaries. And as we see, primaries sometimes, 10% of the electorate, maybe 15% of the electorate goes out to vote. And that's it. So you have an entire congressional district. You would have a significant percentage voting maybe in the general election, particularly presidential years. But now it's a primary election and people don't go to vote unless, who does? Those most motivated. So you've got the far right, you have the far left who are most motivated, and they're going to get involved. A record of success second to none. Parker Daniels Keyboard Law Firm, the numbers tell the story. The last 5 cases our lawyers have brought to trial have resulted in million and multi-million-dollar verdicts for our plaintiff clients and 0 defense verdicts for our defense clients. Put simply, we try cases and we win cases. Hi, I'm Andrew Parker. At Parker Daniels Keyboard, we take our work personally and we go the extra mile. That is why some of the biggest law firms, locally and nationally, send cases to us to handle when they can't. If you have a challenging and critically important business or personal legal dispute that must be favorably resolved, whether regarding a contract matter, a business divorce, a real estate dispute, an employment dispute, a civil rights or defamation matter, plain talk, if it's a big deal, contact us at Parker Daniels Keyboard. Wise counsel, winning results. Go to parkerdk.com. And of course, if it's a Democratic district, the number of far-right voters is very few in that district. But even if they all went out to vote, it wouldn't matter because there just aren't that many of them. But on the far left, they get motivated. They come out to vote. They can decide who the candidate is. And remember, it's primary determinative. So they can determine within the Democratic Party, if the Democratic Party mainstream voters don't vote, these far left candidates win. And then they go to Congress. And there they have. And you've heard me say many times, there are 535 people in this country of 330 plus million who carry a vote and make all the difference in the world, not just here, on policy in Congress. 100 senators, 435 representatives. And we're talking now about these representatives whose districts are drawn every 10 years. And I would argue, more important than any party politics, more important potentially than, maybe not, than the election of the President of the United States, is the drawing of congressional districts, as well as state legislative districts. Every 10 years, the drawing of those districts determine whether we're going to have a competitive Democrat-Republican general election race in that district or whether it's going to be primary determinative. And we have reached the point where we have 90% of our districts primary determinative, which means we're going to get wing nuts sitting in seats, those 535 that vote, sitting in one of those seats, 2 of those seats. Now it's 30 of those seats. Pretty soon, who knows, 50 or 60. Listen, even with U.S. Senate seats, states are starting to become so divided. Whoever wins the Democratic primary in Illinois for the United States Senate is in all likelihood going to be the next senator of Illinois. Not even the general election, because it's a blue state. Same with California, New York. Now, there's always a chance, and we're not redrawing state lines. U.S. senators, obviously, those 100 campaign statewide. There isn't a line drawing that gerrymanders voters. But voters move in and out. We got red states, we got blue states. You know about that. And you know that there are, 7 key swing states, maybe another 5 or 6 that could be, but that's about it. The remainder, pretty much lock, stock, and barrel. Susan Collins was in town this week, Minneapolis, and she's running against the Nazi tattoo guy, although he's out now, and so they'll have to pick somebody else who maybe fits Maine a little bit better than the Nazi tattoo guy. But, when he ran and everyone knew he had the Nazi tattoo, everyone knew. They didn't care. 72% of the vote in Maine, within the Democratic Party in Maine. He beat a very popular or very well-known Democratic politician by 50 points. Boy, crazy. So it is a different political world out there. And the United States of America, over time, if this continues, will be ruled and governed by those who believe in things we don't even recognize as being possible. It'll be a horror story. What do we do about it? What do we do? Well, you've got to energize folks. You remember, 50 years ago when people didn't show up to vote. 30% of the electorate would routinely vote. Now, Minnesota has had fairly high numbers, some of the highest in the country in terms of voter turnout each election. Going back as far as you can remember, Joan Grow, and she was Secretary of State, was bragging about the fact that we in Minnesota had the greatest voter turnout. Walter Mondale, Hubert Humphrey would talk about that often as well, and it was a badge of honor, a real feather in our cap. But that has changed entirely, and it's changed around the country. What I mean is, it used to be that many states would have around 30%, while Minnesota might have had 60, 65% voter turnout. Now, there is much more energy, but the energy is in certain pockets. So, if you're talking about Donald Trump and his election and how he got elected, and some would say the deep base of the MAGA movement drove his election. I don't know that I agree with that entirely. I think there is a lot to it, but certainly there is a far right fringe of the Republican Party that was open to supporting Donald Trump. And he also got a sufficient amount of regular establishment Republicans. And that's difficult to do. He was able to do it. And on the Democratic side, Kamala Harris was not able to. I don't think she was able to get either the establishment vote or the far left vote at all. And a candidate that can do that is going to be formidable. And I think the Democrats may well be able to do that. People know that I thought Kamala Harris might be able to do that. I was wrong about that. However, I think that my error was just in my timing. And the next Democratic president, not presidential nominee for the Democrats, may well be able to pull the breadth of that movement. On the other hand, some say, now they're tearing the party apart, and that's where it sits. The Democratic Party is just a few years away from total destruction. I don't believe that. So the message today: socialism crazy. The other hatred of Jews and Israel, and the tie between, or the intersectionality, I guess is what they call it, between the communist movement and anti-Israel Jew hatred is real, and it is in the Democratic Party. It is sown in the party right now, and we need to work and work hard on that, because our political system is now set up where 90% of the congressional districts are primary determinative. And that means the wing nuts are coming out in force. It's an environment for them. Just like the swamp is an environment for the mosquitoes. It's an environment for them to prevail. People you never heard of getting elected into Congress and then moving on from there. And by the way, it is happening right under our noses at the local level. School boards, state legislatures, city councils, municipal apparatus, prosecutors, attorneys general, across the board. And we have, seen it over the last several years, particularly with prosecutors in various, that are taking actions, letting people go, not enforcing the law, left and right. And they're doubling down on it. They are not shying away from it or excusing it or apologizing at all. No. So it's a dangerous time, and we have to wake people up so they go vote. And by the way, you got to make sure that the votes are counted accurately, which I think is going to be the next battleground. We'll do that on another show, as I have a case which is waiting for a decision by the U.S. Supreme Court as to whether or not to accept to accept our petition for review. And we'll talk about that once that decision comes down. I thank you once again for joining us on this episode of The Andrew Parker Show. Go to The Andrew Parker Show, The Andrew Parker Show, all one word, .com. And visit our website, join us, subscribe, leave your email there. And send us questions, thoughts, ideas as we continue down the path toward the November election. And we'll have on, we're going to do our congressional parade here in the next 6-8 weeks. As we'll have Michelle Fischbach. We had Brad Finstad on. We'll have Michelle Fischbach, Pete Stauber, Tom Emmer, the majority whip, and try to have some subject matter experts on as well, as we want to talk more about Iran and, unfortunately, the debacle that Donald J. Trump has led us into. I supported his action, but not doing it with no intention of winning it. If you're going to do it, dropping bombs and going to war, as it were, with Iran, you need to do it to win. And anything short of that is likely will result in a failure. So we'll see. Until next time, I say be kind to your neighbor. For more Smart Plain Talk, go to theandrewparkershow.com. Learn about all of your listening and viewing options. And remember, all the great things are simple, and many can be expressed in a single word: freedom, justice, honor, duty, mercy, hope. This episode of The Andrew Parker Show is sponsored by Parker Daniels Keyboard.
Did your employer make you sign a promissory note when joining the company, and now you want to leave, but you're afraid your firm will pursue you personally for that debt? This is Jesse Keyboard from the law firm Parker Daniels Keyboard. I recently represented a client who had signed such a note, and I was able to get them out of their $500,000 debt to their company, which allowed them the freedom to exit a bad employment situation and enter a much better one. Meeting our clients' objectives is our focus at Parker Daniels Keyboard, and in this regard, we win. Our experienced trial team of lawyers at Parker Daniels Keyboard have secured major victories in state and federal courts across the country and through arbitration. We have the legal expertise in all types of business disputes, labor and employment matters, real estate matters, shareholder disputes, financial transactions, security issues, and appeals. For wise counsel, winning results, contact us at Parker Daniels Keyboard, a premier litigation law firm that provides efficient, aggressive, and innovative solutions to complex legal problems. Wise counsel, winning results. Go to parkerdk.com.